The anger of the Israelis against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip appears to be taking new forms. Israel has warned the Palestinian Hamas resistance movement, which controls Gaza, that it would launch a new attack to take over the enclave, and that if the Gazans continue to fly what is described as arson kites into Israel. The Palestinians have been given a deadline of this coming Friday to stop flying the kites. If this does not happen, a military campaign would start in the Strip, according to the media in Tel Aviv. Nevertheless, there have been reports that Israeli forces have already launched an exercise simulating a war in the Gaza Strip. Officials say the exercise had been planned in advance and was not linked to the recent flare-up of violence in the enclave. But many believe it was in fact a tacit threat to Hamas. Observers are now questioning Tel Aviv's motivation to raise military threats against the Palestinians at a time that the US is preparing to unveil the so-called deal of the century.
Israel is getting more brazen and more brave and stepping up their murderous annexing policy in both the West Bank and Gaza, because the UN does nothing, the Americans do nothing. Even when they shoot medics, burn babies, kill teenagers, kill civilians, blow up homes, there seems to be no red line that they can cross that will have any consequences. And there's really no political blowback for killing people in Gaza or stealing land in the West Bank. The majority of the Israeli public supports these policies. And so it's a win-win political situation. Another motivation is saving face. They've essentially lost the war in Syria. Their proxy armies have been defeated, and they are taking it out on Gaza.
Meanwhile, Israel has tightened its blockade of the Gaza Strip, thus stoking up fears that a war could be just around the corner. This includes limiting fuel deliveries to Gaza, as well as reducing the fishing zone for the Gazans. The humanitarian situation in the enclave, which has been under the Israeli blockade since 2007, has already been described as dire by many rights groups. In fact, the same poor conditions there triggered Palestinian protests, the Great March of Return, that have been going on since last March. Protests that have claimed the lives of around 140 Palestinians and left many wounded. Concerns are now rising that even if a new war does not break out, the situation in Gaza will sooner or later become even more deteriorated than before for the Palestinians. In related news, the Israeli Knesset has passed yet another law that encourages the grabbing of Palestinian lands by the Israelis in the West Bank and the suburbs of Jerusalem al-Quds. According to this law, the Palestinians in occupied territories will be forbidden to complain to the Supreme Court against occupation of their territories and the vandalism of their homes. This is already being seen as a move that will depict Israel as an apartheid state even more than before.
Israel's not actually looking for peace. It's just sort of PR and something you know that you're supposed to say to the world community. They are looking to annex more territory. They've been annexing territory in an upward scale since their inception. And they're grabbing more territory in the West Bank. They're looking to actually grab territory in Gaza again.
There is little hope that lasting peace will emerge between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Many are questioning what has made US President Donald Trump expect the success of his so-called deal of the century. That particularly considering that the situation on the ground is only deteriorating for the Palestinians, specifically those living in the Gaza Strip.